What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Power Play with CJ. I'm going to focus in on the Columbus Blue Jackets as part of this season preview edition to the Power Play. Obviously, not a great team last year, but their minor league affiliate, the Lake Erie Monsters, won the Calder Cup in the AHL. So there's something to, hold on to, as there's plenty of reason for optimism in Columbus, as some young guys who played very well for that Lake Erie team are knocking on the door for roster spots in Columbus. Who are some of those players? Well, we'll start with the young guys in Columbus. Zach Werenski is the truth. I have pushed that kid since he was with the U.S. development team, then he was at Michigan last 2 years and all that. The kid can flat out play. He has the tools to be a legitimate top pairing defenseman in the National Hockey League for the next 20 years. You look at how he's seemingly always played a level above. He was at Michigan as the youngest freshman in the history of Red Barons' tenure there. He had, I'm trying to pull up his AHL playoff numbers last year, 14 points in 17 games as a 19-year-old defenseman in the AHL. That's pretty fucking good. So, we'll see how that works out with him in Columbus, but I think he's ready to play a big time role in that blue line. And with guys like Ryan Murray, like Seth Jones, there's reason to be optimistic that Columbus Blue Jackets blue line will be young and exciting next year. Up front, I really like Boone. Boone Jenner's established himself as a 30-goal scorer in the NHL, so I'm gonna talk about some of the other guys that got coming up before we circle back to him. Oliver Bjorkstrand led the Monsters in scoring last year in the playoffs. He's an excellent player. I think he's going to be a guy that is ready for full-time NHL spot. The amount of one-way contracts for the Blue Jackets is what's gonna fuck that kid over, but he can play at a high level. And I remember watching him play for the Portland Winterhawks, being like, all right, this kid's going to make it in the NHL. And, they got, I feel, good value for him in the first round of the 2013. No, this is the third round pick. I again misspoke. It's one of those days, guys. It's the dog days of summer coming to an end. Yeah, it was a third round pick, end of the third round. And I graded him out as a second, if you look back and saw my notes on that draft. But, yeah. Two very, very, very good post-draft years with Portland, and then a good year in the AHL last year. And then Sonny Milano. I think he's one of the more intriguing names because he's another guy I've been following since right before he got on the U.S. development team. And, I think he can play. I think he's a very talented player. I just think the consistency issue with him is going to be something to keep an eye on. So that's that for the young guys coming up. Let's talk about the young guys that are already established. The 25 and under talent that the Jackets have. Brandon Saad will be 24 on October 27th. 53 points last year in his first year as the Blue Jacket. 31 goals. He went from being a guy that was a bit player in Chicago on a pair of Stanley Cup championship teams to being a guy that's one of the focal points for this Jackets team, and we'll see how he's able to improve in year 2 in Columbus. That's going to be he'll be a big part for Team North America, what the fuck that is. He's one of those guys I wish could have played for the U.S. in that World Cup tournament because I think he would have definitely benefited from that experience. But that is what it is. The aforementioned Boone Jenner, 30 goals last year. I mean, he's a tough kid. He's tough to play against. Gives you some sandpaper in the lineup. He's only 23. He's definitely on the up and up. Definitely a steal in the draft. And then on defense, I already talked about them, but Seth Jones, who really, really, really played well coming over from the Nashville Predators and really established himself as the team's anchor on defense. And fellow WHL alum Ryan Murray, who was, if he can stay healthy, which is always kind of the thing with him. He will have a very big impact on this Jackets team, I think. And you add any young kid like Werenski, and that blue line went from being like really, really shitty and sucky to being like, oh, pretty good. So we'll see how those young guys continue to develop. The veterans on the roster: Cam Atkinson. Excellent player from Boston College. He's a nice, creative offensive player. He's going to, bring you some creativity despite not being the biggest guy on the ice, which is always a good thing. Oh, I forgot about Wenberg. Like him a lot. liked him going into the first round of the 13 draft, and he showed last year that he can play at this level. As a 21-year-old kid, had 40 points in about 70 games, and doesn't spend a lot of time in the penalty box. It's just good. It's not detrimental to his team. But we'll see what happens with some of the other veterans. Foligno got to step up and be better. Last year was not a great year for him. Dubinsky, you could use a little more productivity from, although 48 points from him is well par for the course. So he is what he is. Calvert is what he is. Gregory Campbell is what he is. Sam Gagner might be a nice fit, but he might also be on waivers by, November 10th. Scott Hodnell, they will be looking like crazy to move. He has a no trade clause. They supposedly had a deal in place to send him back to the Nashville Predators, and that fell through, so keep an eye on that situation. David Clarkson, another guy that they could just kind of drop off in the middle of nowhere and leave. But, they needed to get out from Nathan Horton's contract, so they took on a fellow bad contract. You really can't fault the player for hustling. But, again, that's one of those things to keep an eye on in the next few months, especially with the expansion draft looming. On defense, talked about Jones, talked about Murray, talked about Werenski. Jack Johnson's the most overrated player in the NHL. There, I said it. Don't at me, bro. But, some other people, I don't think David Savard's a bad player. And I know people don't like Prout, but if he's your sixth defenseman, I think you're okay. So we'll see what happens with those guys. But Jack Johnson never put up great offensive numbers, has always been a sieve defensively, and for whatever reason, people are waiting for him to break out. Well, people, he's going to be 30 in January. So keep waiting. Wait in one hand, shoot in the other. See which one fills up first. And then in that, Bobrovsky, again, I sound like a broken record with this team, but he's got to be better next year. There's going to be some competition. Obviously, McElhinney's kind of established himself as his backup over the last couple of years, but Korpisalo looked good in stretches last year, so maybe he's a guy that can take over there. We'll see what happens with him. But, again, this Jackets team has talent. They just got to put it together and, be the team that the fans want them to be, which is a not shitty team. I think Tortorella is not the best coach of the squad, but you got to deal with him. Let's see what happens next with him and this team, and what that next step for the Jackets is. And I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they'll be better than expected next year. I think they'll be better than they were last year, which is not saying a whole lot. But, again, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think I hinted at him earlier. I don't see him opening. I see him opening the season with the Jackets. I think he gets. If it were me, I'd give him the 9-game look and then send him back to Cape Breton. I think another year of junior hockey would be beneficial for him. I know, he was number 3 pick in the draft. Yeah, but I don't think being patient with a prospect is the worst thing in the world. Columbus has been burned time and time again by rushing these kids to the NHL, and I think letting the 18-year-old kid go back to junior, be a focal point. I know Cape Breton's not going to be that good. They're going to trade him to some other team in the queue. He'll be one of the focal points for Canada, WJC, and I think that'll be a better thing for him than having to deal with John Tortorella as an 18-year-old. But then again, what do I know? Anyway, that's all I got in this episode of the Power Play with CJ. Stay tuned for episodes throughout the off-season and beyond. There you guys.